Доброго ранку усім.
Good morning, everybody. We start our work here at Ukraine's Crisis Media Center, and we start our work with the Local Budgets Transparency Index, the start of evaluation press conference. We have with us Viktor, President of the East Europe Foundation, Natalia Starostenko, Sector Manager of the Regional Development and Budget Support and Delegation of the European Union to Ukraine, Mr. Oleksii, Orlovskyi, Director of the Democratic Practice Program Initiative of the International Renaissance Foundation, Ihor, Lepioshkin, Chief Expert and the leader of the expert group of the Partnership for Local Economic Development and Democratic Governance, and Anatolii, Boiko, Coordinator of the Public Partnership for Transparent Local Budgets. Well, we should say that with this project of ours, we practically are working in order to assess this improved opportunity for the local budgets to use their funds, increased funds, with the funds that increased within the decentralization initiative of the government of Ukraine. So it's about both internal and external controls of the expenses of the local authorities. We wanted to discuss the mechanisms and the instruments of such control so that the Ukrainians could indeed feel that the local budgets funds are expended in a proper and transparent manner. So today we are going to discuss this topic of local budgets, transparency index, the start of evaluation. So we are going to discuss all the aspects of this initiative, how it can be, this initiative can be perceived by the public at large, and what would the Ukrainian public have about the openness and transparency of the budgetary process at a local level. So today we have an opportunity to discuss the authors of discuss these issues with the authors of this initiative, so to say, who are the leaders of the NGOs who developed this methodology of indexation. Can you tell us what this index is? What does it consist of? What are the parameters or criteria for evaluating the budget, the local budget's expenditures? Thank you, Oleksii. The most important difference between our index and the methodologies that have already been in use here in Ukraine is that it's practically an instrument of, we can say, we can increase to the maximal point the transparency of the budgetary process, the circulation of information. It's not about rewards or awards and so on. So this is an instrument both for local authorities and for the civic society or civil society of the country. And we would certainly like it if local authorities use this instrument for self-evaluation. So there will be, some lobbying efforts, I think, on the part of the NGOs and our NGO and the others who are behind this new methodology for the local authorities to adopt that methodology and start applying it. So we, not only us as the developers of this indexation methodology can use it, but everybody else will be perfectly able to use it too. It is unique for Ukraine now, and it is unique because of the qualities that I have already described to you. So I'd say that it's an instrument of approximating the transparency of the budgetary, local level budgetary process to the ideal, so to say, transparency level. It provides the access to information, to public information, or the information that should be in public domain anyway, and is not yet in it. It enables also the NGOs to participate in the budgetary process, and we have a number of other innovative instruments built in, so to say, into this methodology. So we went beyond the current laws of Ukraine, because the laws are here, everybody can use and apply them, but we have done, we have used some best international practices that have not yet been used in Ukraine. So at every stage of the budgetary process of planning, of drafting the budget and so on and so forth, there is a number of criteria and indicators in accordance with which the efficiency and transparency of this process can be gauged, so to say. We have 139 questions that we put in a questionnaire, and then by scoring the answers to these questions according to certain criteria, we can assess each aspect on the scale from 1 to 10, and the transparency, the index of transparency of the local budget can thus be constructed. So you can see here the scores. 16 is the minimal, then 48 is the satisfactory of the level of the transparency of the budget, and then the other indicators, like 70 points is the better condition of it, or better level of it, and so on. Here you can see it on this slide, detailed description, detailed presentation of this scoring system. To make this methodology as useful and as convenient for use as possible, we have tried to present it all into in the form of an application computer program that can be used by any NGO activist in any place of Ukraine. So the efficiency of the budgetary process of any local authority can be assessed using this computer program, or application as they call it now. So, for example, if you live in Kiev, you can assess the transparency level of the Kiev city authorities, municipal authorities of our town. I can tell you that our activists have already started this process of evaluation of the transparency of the local budgets in all centers, administrative centers of every oblast, the region, administrative region of Ukraine. And we hope that within the next months we will assess all the stages of the budgetary process. We will work out a detailed assessment of the level of transparency of each local authority, municipal authority, basically all over the country. And after that, when we have the results, we are going to continue lobbying the use of this software and this index by all the local authorities of Ukraine. Well, it's very interesting, your description. And when, can you tell us when the Ukrainians are able to see, or will be able to see this, these results? As I have already told you, in each regional center, I hope, in each oblast center, the assessment is going to be made by autumn. That's our plans, at least. I cannot tell you about the increase of the number of assessed local authorities yet, but I'm sure that in the process, and when this methodology is better known,
містах, на місцях брала і оцінювала.
It will be the use of this methodology will be stimulated. I'm sure that both the local activists of the local NGOs will contribute to that, and also the local authorities themselves might, I hope, like this methodology and start using it by themselves. I even hope that there can be even some, element of, so to say, competition, internal competition among the local authorities themselves. Maybe it would also help using this methodology more broadly. So you mentioned also a computer program, a software, a piece of software. Is it, well working in your opinion? Yes. It's quite efficient, very interesting, and so we hope that this methodology and the computer program that can be used for its use, its application, can produce better results, can give better opportunities to the NGOs and to the local authorities themselves. I would also like to greet now Ms. Starostenko. She is the sector manager and regional development and budget support sector of the delegation of the European Union here in Ukraine. Ms. Natalia, I know it for a fact that in the European Union this notion of transparency of the local authorities' operation is quite important, is deemed to be quite important. Do you think that this new rating, this new evaluation methodology that we have heard about just now, how is it evaluated? How is it perceived by the European Union authorities? Has it been reaction to that, to its appearance here in Ukraine? Well, let me start with highlighting the importance which is attributed by the European Commission to the transparency process of the local budget process. Any local authority, let me say it quite clearly, that any local authority needs to be quite transparent if it hopes to get any assistance from the European Union. Ukraine is now, so to say, in this trend, and these indices that can portray somehow, give the impression, a more or less exact impression of the level of this transparency of the budgetary process at a local level is quite important. So we hope that Ukrainian local authorities, local governments would be able to, to show the appropriate level of such transparency as compared to the other countries. And again, I would like to say that the European Union might be willing to increase its support, financial support to Ukraine, but it cannot do so yet because of this lack of transparency of how the, especially the local budget funds are expanded by the local authorities. Therefore, let me congratulate you on this initiative, on this index, and especially positive in my view is the fact that it can, so to say, envelop, it could be spread to a large number of cities. So let me wish you, every success. And as Ukrainian proverb, rather Russian proverb goes, have a headwind. I wish you to have a headwind, hoping you to continue moving in that direction. Thank you, Ms. Natalia. So we hope that this assessment of transparency is another step that would contribute to the efficiency of the local authorities' operations here in Ukraine. Let me now introduce a representative of of another project that is also interested in using this methodology. Well, our project, the project for the development of the cities, is certainly, by definition, is interested in, you know, the local authorities' efficiency. We currently work in Poltava, Zaporozhye, and a couple of more administrative oblasts or regions of Ukraine. We have in total 16 municipalities covered by this project. And speaking about this specific methodology, we have worked on we try to develop the most efficient model for local authorities. It also envisaged the cooperation of the NGOs and participation of the society, of the public at large, as one of the necessary conditions for the efficiency of the local authorities' operations. Especially as far as the public information is concerned. For example, until recently it has been so that even if the local authorities discovered some financial information about their work, about their day-to-day routine, so to say, expenditures, public simply has not known where to the public have not known where to get this information, and so we need to improve this transparency, which we may call directly the transparency of information, accessibility of information. And we hope that this will significantly improve the efficiency of the local authorities themselves. So we considered it important to be able to become able to monitor the transparency, the level of transparency at any local authority in Ukraine, so that some assistance, targeted assistance, could be provided to them if we.
Найважливіше це от розробка таких.
If we feel that some assistance is needed in certain aspects. Therefore, we hope that this will be a good instrument for the improvement of our activities as well, of our operations as well, all over Ukraine. So let me thank all the organizations who who supported this initiative and thus improve the monitoring of the local authorities and improve the transparency, increase the transparency of their work. I can also refer to a similar, very similar, in my view, system. We developed the system of the monitoring and evaluation of efficiency of assistance, different kinds of assistance provided to the local authorities. And there have been a number of recommendations developed with the use of this methodology and modeling that we developed, and it enabled us to improve, I believe, significantly the efficiency of the assistance, the aid that is provided to local authorities, has been provided to the local authorities. So I would also like to say that it's important for the synergies of the assistance programs, and this index, I hope, will also show the efficiency of the European assistance aid, of the Renaissance Foundation, Mr. George Soros's foundation here in Ukraine. So I hope that the situation in Ukraine will be improved overall by using these indices. Well, certainly it has been, thank you for your presentation, for your views. Certainly it has been important in these instruments are all important because they enable the Ukrainian citizens to participate in this process of control, so to say, monitoring of the local authorities' activities. And you mentioned that the quality of services was monitored using the methodologies that you developed recently. Now, my next question is to Mr. Oleksii Orlovskyi, who is the director of the Democratic Practice Program of the International Renaissance Foundation. In my opinion, you share this view of the importance of civic participation, so to say, of the participation of the citizenry of the country in these monitoring and control processes with regard to the local authorities and their expenditures and budgets. So, can you say whether you see any interlink between this assessment stage and then involvement of the citizenry in the decision-making process within the budgetary process at the local level? Well, the Soros Foundation has been for many years active in in the efforts to develop the democracy at the local level all over Ukraine, as we know, and it has been done for many years. Specifically also within the budgetary process, there has been a great deal of interest to that area from our Renaissance Foundation. As you mentioned, there is now the decentralization process underway, including financial decentralization and better opportunities. It means better opportunities for the local authorities and local governments. But as has already been mentioned, within this process of decentralization of administrative powers, including fiscal powers, also decentralization of corruption is occurring in Ukraine. That's what we can say. And that's what the media and the public at large says. So we as an organization are interested in taking a closer look into the process related to the budgetary planning and all the stages of the formation of local budgets and their expenditures.
Фінансової, фіскальної децентралізації, які відбуваються на...
So to avoid any distortions, so to say, of this budget process, let me say that the Soros Foundation is very interested in, having things straight here in this respect. The reform of the local authorities is also underway now, and what we can see, and we see it, the reaction of the public, that when the authority of the local governments changes, when it is altered, the state at the same time does not provide any support to the publics, to the broader public participation in these processes, and in fact, when a local community delegates, some of its authorities to their local governments, I think that's where we can speak about local democracy and various instruments that can be applied and are applied all over Ukraine for this local authorities' operations and functioning, including the budgetary process, of course. So this stage of evaluation and, the increase of transparency, that's of interest and has always been of interest to the Soros Foundation. And I'm not going to repeat all of the elements, all the components of the Renaissance Foundation's operation. but you all know the logic and the main components and the main areas of interest of the Renaissance Foundation. For example, an important aspect, in my view, is that any participant in cooperating with the Renaissance Foundation has an opportunity, by using our organization's methodologies, can make self-assessment, so to say. So how can the money, how are the money expended, and so on. So, for example, when in Odessa region we started cooperating with the local government of Odessa Oblast, we found it very interesting that there was, so to say, a coalition of the NGOs and you know, supported by the local governments, local administrations in Odessa Oblast. And therefore, this analysis of the budgetary process, we thought that it would be better if we make this assessment process, we bring it to some, so to say, you know, more or less standardized form, so that each stage in every local authority could be assessed according to some standard procedures. The aim was not only to put some scores, you know, to each of these aspects of evaluation, but also to produce recommendations. And then, after that, look to it that these recommendations are implemented, how the local communities, local public you know, are involved in that implementation. Thank you, Oleksii. And I cannot but mention the need for the public, you know, to take part in this, you know, in demanding from the local authorities that increase of transparency. Well, there have been scores of examples of this participation. The use of such instruments, unfortunately or regrettably, have not been mandatory for the local authorities to use. It was not for them necessary for them sometimes, or oftentimes, to use these instruments. According to the decision of the Cabinet of Ministers, there is a number of assessment, you know, methods that have been recommended by the Cabinet of Ministers to the local authorities, and that's why I think it is important that, besides the local authorities themselves, if someone else is also involved in evaluation of their efficiency, that will be beneficial and useful for the country. For example, this new initiative, I would call it a civic initiative, the so-called public or civic budget, which is now debated by the press, when the public is participating, local communities are participating in planning and forming local budgets. This has been quite successful, I think, this initiative. Therefore, I must say that there is a lot of such instruments and initiatives that can broaden the participation of the public in this budgetary process. The ball, so to say, is in the public's court now. Well, so thank you for your views. We can say that then that this methodology is not simply an index, but also this methodology allows the use of this index results, indexation, so to say, or index results, it can be used to involve the public into this budgetary process. Let me say it again that this index, it covers all the stages of the budgetary process, and it envisages public consultations or consultations with civil society, we can say so, the local authorities with the members of civil society. And as of today, you can find some information about the first results of this assessment at the website tlb.ua, and also in the other websites of the other NGOs. Those of us who are interested can come to me and get all these electronic addresses from me directly now, so that all the Ukrainians interested in having better access to this information about local budgetary processes are, so to say, better informed about these processes. So we are now talking about a coalition of more than 100 NGOs, if I'm not mistaken, more than 100, yes, who are dealing with this broader involvement of the citizenry into the local budgeting process. So the goal is to involve as many Ukrainians as possible into this process of evaluation of the quality of services, of overall work of local governments, local authorities all over Ukraine. Let me thank now all the participants of our press conference and also all the partners and partner organizations who have taken part in the very process of the development of this indexation system or methodology. In case you have any questions, you're most welcome to ask them now. We cannot hear without microphone. I'm Katerina Tsevenko, and I'm a coordinator of the Transparent Cities project in the Transparency International Organization. And transparency of the local budgets was also within our purview, so to say. Mr. Anatolii Boiko was among those who helped us to develop this system of indexation. And this large number, 139 indicators by which you assess the transparency of the local budgetary processes. I hope that we will be able to continue spreading this methodology and use it more efficiently together with our partners. I'm Margarita Trofimova from IRTA TV. My question is related to the possibility of the application of this methodology in the areas in eastern Ukraine where the hostilities, now the clashes occur, and can this methodology be used for the local authorities operating there? Well, we are now in contact with with the NGOs from those areas. We think that generally we certainly can apply this methodology there too. I see no obstacles to that. I also have a question. Who are those, rank and file citizens who are interested allegedly in the local budgetary process? Are they like individuals or mostly the activists of some NGOs, or who are they? Well, we have only started using our methodology, therefore we do not have yet any data to give you a clear answer to that question. I'd say that usually the people who turn to us asking questions about the local budget processes, they are the members of the NGOs who are somehow related to either this you know, local budgetary problematics, you know, the array of issues related to the local budgets, expenditures, and also some of the, so to say, public control organizations. When we have more data, we can get back to you with more detailed answers. Thank you, dear colleagues. If there are no more questions, I would like to conclude our today's press conference by saying again that we have this new methodology that includes 139 parameters, and it's accessible to each and every citizen of Ukraine. It is widely available at the websites of many organizations that, starting from our organization and the number of other organizations. Let me say that you can also send requests as citizens, so that not only the local authorities are involved, but all the, so to say, segments of the executive branch of power in Ukraine who deals with the budget, with public budget expenditures. And that was the name of the website that the gentleman quoted. I didn't hear it quite well. Thank you, and we finish at this point our press conference.